we're supposed to be looking at some cool stuff. I'm like, I don't know what to say. We're supposed to be looking at something in this museum. The only things that we're seeing is some old science fiction art that is plastered on the walls, maybe some 1950s stuff. It's looking old. We see the windows in which we could look at people dancing outside having themselves some fun. And then we're just looking at basically an empty hallway. And then the other hallways and other sections of the museum are sealed off closed. So what did I take them to? Just a giant space of emptiness.
Welcome to the Where Have You Been podcast. I'm your host, Bill Ream, and each week on the pod, I have conversations with incredible guests from all walks of life. Expect to hear funny, crazy, emotional, life-changing, and even sometimes life-threatening stories and experiences that will entertain and inspire you. As always, I appreciate your likes, subscriptions, ratings, and reviews wherever you are listening. It doesn't sound like much, but it truly helps the pod get to the ears of more people who may enjoy it. And check out the website, whybpodcast.com, for links to the socials where you can find pictures from the guests and their stories, and also buy merch if you're so inclined. Now let's get to this week's episode. Thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, it is another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast. Thank you for being here. As always, I am your host, Bill Ream. And as always, I have another fantastic guest this week. I'm very excited for probably the first time I can call someone a student of the world. I have the one and only AJ on the episode today, and I want to thank you for being here, AJ, and taking the time with us. And if you would be so kind as to let our listeners know, who are you?
Yes, I am here. The day is good. Thanks for having me. Since you already said my name, I'll just go with the next step. I travel, plain and simple. And I mean live in other countries. When I explore or decide upon a country to go to, I go there. And I go there for educational reasons. People can go for traveling. And yes, well, I do that. I want to immerse myself into culture. That means I'll fly over, learn something, usually the languages, usually the people, usually how the culture works, including the media, the political structure, the economics, and the daily lifestyle of the people. When I learn what I want to learn from that country, I will fly back home here in the USA. I will take on a part-time job, save up money for about half the year, and I will go to another country. I have been doing this for 10 years. For 10 years, I have been going around left, right, up, down across the globe. And people would always ask me, hey, man, where are you going to next? And I would just have to tell them. Now, recently, I ended up in the Bahamas. That was my latest trip. But early on, many years ago, it was Canada. I have been to 6 continents. I'm not going to include Antarctica because that one is not the one I've been to. But from Asia to Africa to Europe to North and South America and to Oceania, I have been going back and forth across the world. So I have pretty good souvenirs. And when I say souvenirs, languages are the best souvenirs that I can imagine, besides the experience and the friends that I have made. So that is my life as an international student, and I would love to discuss even more. All right, Bill, I know you have plenty of questions for me. It's just a matter of which ones are you going to ask?
You know, and I never know. I come up with them all on the fly, but I'm interested to know. So, right now, you're in the States now, right?
That's right, state of Ohio.
Okay, and that's home, isn't it?
Yes. Now, I did grow up in California, that part, and I mean Southern California, Riverside, California. Riverside is next to Los Angeles, but I'm a resident of Ohio and have been since my undergrad university days.
So right now you're in that phase of working a part-time job or working some sort of a short-term job until you get yourself in a place where you're ready to go somewhere again. Is that right?
Yes, that's how I work. In fact, to most people, I would imagine jobs are the main thing. In my mind, the traveling is the main thing, and the job is there to support it. That is part of how I make it work every year.
Excellent. And you mentioned something very interesting to me before we get into any of like your travel stories or experiences or any of that stuff. How many languages do you know, even if it's just conversational? And how many languages would you consider yourself semi or completely fluent in?
I'm just going to have to say it 12. Whether or not you think it's crazy, I do have a base in 12 languages because I have traveled and studied and been a student in these. Every time I'm in a country, that language goes to its peak, and I end up giving a conversation or providing a conversation with people. When I'm outside of the country, it might go down somewhat, but the base is still there that I could pick it up. In terms of which ones I'm semi fluent in, they vary, but I'm going to say the Romance languages such as French, Spanish, maybe Portuguese. As for a non Romance language, Arabic tends to top the charts. And
That's
then
incredible.
Chinese over Japanese, because one of them is just harder than the other. But it's usually the Romance languages which charts in terms of what I can do, how I can talk. And there's more exposure
Okay.
when it comes to those languages as well.
That makes sense. If you know, this is just my own curiosity, and I apologize. We're not even talking, about your experiences or anything yet. But when you know that you're going to go to a place where you do not yet know the language. Now, if you have bases, a lot of times that they can help to translate a little bit, and maybe you can understand bits and pieces of another language because you already have a base and another one. But how much time do you focus on making sure that you have that language down as well as you can before you go to that country? And it probably varies, I guess, wouldn't it?
Oh, it definitely does. Nowadays, I might just spend a week or less. Seriously, just a couple of days, maybe 3 days. For example, when I was in Germany and I was going to go to Uzbekistan, I believe it was just 3 days towards the end that I was doing anything. And then I just landed myself in that country, still with almost nothing to say. But in the older days, years ago, let's say China, I would spend about a month trying to get something down that it would include the characters or their version of the alphabet, as well as verbs, adjectives, nouns, and the important words. But nowadays, it's shorter because I got a sense of how it works. I'm more confident. I don't have to freak out like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I might be screwed up if I go into this country without a language. But I know that most countries have English in one way or another. So that allows me to chill out somewhat instead of trying to hassle everything through. So I'm going to say in this time, just a couple of days before going into the country.
Have you always found that has language learning always been kind of an easy thing? Because I know for some people it is. It's just easier to absorb it. Plus, you're younger. Not that you're not a teenager anymore, but when you're a younger age, sometimes it's easier, I think. Whereas myself, I'm going to be hitting 50 here in a few days, and for me, like it's tough, man. I have a really hard time with it.
Well, man, I've been looking forward to this question. I just had to get it out there. Heck, language is hard. Now, for my age, I'm actually 32 years old, so I'm by no means a teenager. And I took Spanish classes in high school, so I can still remember how hard it is to get even those. But in terms of difficulty, you really have to put yourself in there. And when it comes to languages, the more that I learn, the more I get a sense of what works for me and what doesn't work, what partially works, and the gray areas in between. So for me, with my
Yeah.
experience nowadays, know what words to go for. So if you understand me correctly, I'm doing things based off of experience. I'm making my choices of language learning based off of experience. I know what's going to work. I know
Mhm.
what's not going to work. 10 years ago, 7 years ago, I didn't have that kind of foresight or knowledge, and I would
Mhm.
just scramble books upon books to get as many words as I could, hundreds of words even. But from my perspective today, it's more efficient to go for the words and the sentences that you are most likely going to use. And
Mhm.
when that established, then you can grow your language. Imagine language learning as a tree. At the roots, you want your roots to be strong. Strong roots would mean words that you are going to use every day, the words that are relevant, such as bathroom, food, I need this. I want this because they, or I'm going to sleep, or I'm going to school. Just basic sentences. They're not complicated. They are words and sentences that you can use. If you have that base down, then you can interact with people. I did not think that way in the early times. I thought I
Mhm.
needed to everything. And when you think that you need to have everything at once, then you're actually going to struggle. You are going to have a whole pain of a time, or I should say, the language is going to be a pain in the neck. So, once again, to summarize, I say with experience, I know what works for me, I know what doesn't work. I also know that the way I learn might be different from what another person needs in order to learn because we all have different styles. But in the end, I went from spending months in a country, such as in France, learning languages, to just basically a month I could speak, or if in a month, maybe in Germany, or maybe in Brazil. In these times, I could spend maybe just a month or a couple of weeks and I'm just talking because I know how to learn the languages. When you learn how to learn something, that is when it appears easy to the perspective of other people. But I remember pretty well that when you don't know how to learn, when you have a mindset of you need to have everything down, and when you have a mindset of going after the wrong words and the wrong priorities, that is when it is a pain in the neck. That is basically my spiel.
So you've learned how to learn because you've learned from your mistakes.
That's right. And man,
That's
it's
um,
been a crazy process.
I'm sure. But it sounds like you've been really good at it, so that's great.
Man, you don't get to learn all these languages without not knowing how to do it.
Exactly. So before we get into, well, I have a couple things. So first of all, I'm curious to know, when did travel become a thing in your life? Was it something that you grew up with your family, or was it something that you started kind of on your own later on? I know you traveled like in school, right, or in the school ages, whether it was university or whatever. But when did that become a thing in your life?
I actually took some time to reflect. I think it was when I was a kid. I was in maybe fourth or fifth grade. There was a book in class, and in this book, they had pictures of China and Cambodia. I just wanted to be there. And then the process of school happens. In another grade, there's China, Egypt. We're learning about these countries. I'm thinking about how cool it is. Then we have to fast forward years from now. We did take a family trip to Canada, my family and I. But then that was a neat experience, as all experiences. Once again, I have to fast forward to the future to where I am in a university, Ohio Dominican University. I see a pamphlet of different countries. I'm just getting all excited. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, there's a lot of countries. Which one can I fly to? They are expensive. So there's the problem. Money, expensive. I don't make that much in those times. And yet I'm seeing all these countries just like I did as a kid. And I'm just imagining myself going there. I would imagine it started long before I even traveled, in which people, all of us as kids, when we're young, we are just having these ideas. We really want to do something, but we can't. It's usually because we don't have the ability, the finances, the connections. We're just not in that position, but we want to. But I'm going to put this moment in my university days when I'm just a student. I'm in the World Student Club because I'm just liking this stuff. Or I should say, I'm just loving this stuff. We have students from other countries. I like to mix and mingle. There's a pamphlet of different countries. I see them. I want to go to them. And I can't. Not at this time. Most of them are too expensive, except for the first one, which is Guatemala. It's the cheapest, it's the closest one, and I sign up for a class to go there because I just want to do it. So the wish to travel, the desire to travel has been there perhaps since I was young for many years, perhaps for a lifetime. The only difference is now I am getting close to being able to actually travel. And eventually I do start to travel there to Guatemala. And when I come back here, I want to do it again. Not to
Mm.
go out, I want to go to another country because now
It does that to you, doesn't it?
that's right.
Yeah.
Once you're in the position to travel, well, now what are you going to do? You're just going to keep on doing it because you can. So,
Yeah.
to answer the question, I think I've always had it. It's just a matter of how, when, and to what extent I can do it.
Hmm. I think it's a really unique perspective. I don't think we've had that one yet on here because I think most of our guests who have that love and passion of travel got it from someone. So whether it was their family, a friend, maybe they had foreign exchange students or something, or but either at a younger age or maybe even college age, maybe like that. But you seemed to have that want for it even before then. But it was really once. But it's just different that it doesn't sound like it was mom or dad or sister or brother or somebody like that actually was doing it or had done it that really turned you on to it. It was really just you and just your love of learning and love of learning about cultures, it sounds like.
Yes, I had that since I was young, but to also re- reference my parents, they traveled themselves here and there. It's just I'm going off to extremes in comparison.
Okay, okay. But they traveled, but they didn't necessarily take you with, except for like a family trip here or there.
That's right. And before I was born, they had their countries. Before I was born, they had countries that they've been to. I'm just going to say about a handful of countries versus I am at 23 right now.
Yeah. You've taken what they did and you just run away with it. So we're going to jump into this to your actual travels and experiences, but I do want to give you an opportunity to let people know, because I know that a lot of people, these my podcasts tend to run a little long. The episodes run a little long, and some people are commuting. Maybe they don't listen all the way to the end. I'd like them to know where they can find you, any socials that you have, anywhere that if someone wants to reach out and ask you some questions about your life or ask you for advice on anything, where can people find you out there in the socials?
Yes, my Facebook and my Instagram tend to be active. My username is the same for both. It is basically AJ and my last name. So, as one whole block, no spaces, you can say AJKPOSOWA. You can enter this for Facebook and for Instagram. I did have a TikTok, but I was disconnected from that after going to India because of their rules of how they do social media. But I do have that. I'm not quite as active. It's mostly Instagram and Facebook. And eventually, when I have my book out, then I will promote that onto the social medias. But
Ooh.
the
When is the book happening?
I am aiming to finish this August or September. I am currently on the my third draft of my own book, autobiography. So I just need to add in the pictures, refine it, try to shorten it because 456 pages with no pictures is kind of a lot. But I want to make it pretty decent so that you can read it, you can flow with it, not get bored in the details, but you can get the gist of where I'm going, what I'm thinking, what I'm learning, and just stand on my shoulders.
That's awesome. Really, really awesome. I guess I didn't realize that you were writing a book. So that's very cool. Or that you had written a book and now you're just refining it. So I'm really
Ye-
looking forward to that as well. And I hope that our listeners are also going to maybe follow you on your socials. They'll know when it's actually being released. So hopefully we can touch on maybe just a bit of what, maybe not necessarily everything that's going into the book, but some of the life experiences and things that you've had. So this is the point in the show where I ask you, AJ, the title of my podcast, and you can run with this and answer this any way you'd like to. You do not have to list every place. You take it the way you'd like to. AJ, where have you been?
23 countries. I know people are going to ask me. Therefore, I'm just going to spill it onto the podcast. Let's go. I was born here in the USA. I do not count my birth country. I do not. The country that I have been to will include Canada, Guatemala, Japan, China, Cambodia, Thailand, South Korea, Australia, France, Egypt, Israel or Palestine, however you say it, Jordan. Then after that, it was Brazil and India, Tanzania and Indonesia, Germany, Czech Republic, or Slovakia, as you can call it, Denmark, Poland, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and the Bahamas. This or these are the collections of countries that I have been, and I am sure that I will have plenty more in the future because this world is going to be my stepping stone.
I really love the way you put it at the beginning when I said that you were, which I'm so proud of myself for coming up with that to describe you, a student of the world. And it really, you described yourself as exactly that. And I love that as a description because it sounds like that is exactly the way you view yourself as well. And I love when you phrased it that for many people, the job is the first and most important and the primary thing because that's the way most of us are raised is that the money needs to come first. And for you, you flipped it at an early age, which is amazing. And I think most of us who really love travel need to do more of this and say travel is the primary thing. The work and the money is only the means to get me there. And part of that, as I'm facing 50 myself, you know, you really start to think about the fact that how finite, our lives are and how much limited time we have and we don't even know
Mm.
when that's going to be. So, yeah, I think that like I'm starting to have that mental shift even now. Too bad it's so much later in my life than you did in yours, but I love that. And I'd like you to just take us on any journey you'd like to. And I hopefully this doesn't put much pressure on you, but you take us anywhere you'd like to start us. Like, what was maybe one of the most impactful countries that you've ever been to, and why?
Yes, I'm thinking of two countries off of my list. The main one I like is Egypt, but since you said impactful, I'm going to open up with Japan first, and then I'll switch over a little bit. I'm going to start there because after Guatemala, I knew I wanted to travel some more. Then I went to Japan. And when I went there with a student exchange club, I did my thing. I learned. I traveled with my friends. I spent a whole month there. I had money, but I managed to spend it well. So I came back to the USA. I started working at McDonald's. In my head, I said, if I could go anywhere else, it would be China. I already had a taste of traveling again in the form of Japan. Now, the crazy part is I ended up I ended up going to China just 4 months later because somebody handed me out information on teaching English. And from there, I had to go through a long process of proving that I was a native English speaker who could speak, who could understand the rules of the language, get working up for the finances to get an airplane tickets, getting a stamp on my passport, that stuff. And then I flew out and I lived in China for 1 year, actually just a little bit above a year by myself, teaching English among coworkers, and I ended up traveling to almost every major city. It is between that road of Japan and China. And from there, it's like an avalanche. I know what I could do. I was just doing whatever the heck I wanted. And from there, I would just make improvements upon my life and where I wanted to go. Because at this point, I know what I want to do. I know what countries I want to travel to. And I just take off from there like a shooting arrow. And in the next
So,
country, yeah,
well, so before we move on to the next century, so you said that you chose Japan and then transitioned to China as maybe some of the most impactful. Why was that for you? Like, what really made those? Were there certain things that actually happened while you were in these countries that did it for you? I know you spent, I mean, even a month in Japan, but a full year or over a year in China. Were there things that happened while you were there that really stand out to you as maybe not just reinforcing your need and love for travel, but just really impacted your life?
yes, it actually starts in the mind. It starts on the inside. Otherwise, people will not understand what the heck are you talking about? How do you go from this to this? It's because it was really starting on the inside. To me, Japan was an eye opener. I was in Guatemala for sure. But after Japan, I realized I wanted to travel some more because, as you had already said, and I agree on this part, once you travel, you want to go further. And as I had already said earlier, it's just a matter of how and when. It's a matter of how capable are you in doing this. And around that time in Japan, I'm just living the dream. I was just wanting to go here. It seemed so cool, mysterious, the Japanese way of the samurai, the ancient temples, how they are so organized and orderly. Of course, many people want to go to Japan To me, this was just as much a dream, and I managed to do it. And I didn't run out of money. I didn't go bankrupt or scared or anything. So I knew that I was capable in some sense. If it weren't for Japan, I don't think I would have the courage to go to China by myself for 1 year. With Japan, I knew that I was capable of more. I also realized the day to day world of working and just surviving, get a home, all that stuff of getting a job, I just did not want much to do with it. So therefore, the transformation was happening on the inside. And once it happened, naturally, I was thinking about the next country, the next dream country that I would want to go to. And as we already know, that's China. So from Japan to China. With Japan, I had the courage to go travel by myself because I knew that I was capable. And I'm not going to say it wasn't scary. That was still out of my comfort zone once you're alone in the world. But even then, once I got settled in China, I ended up traveling to a dozen other cities within that country later on. So I was basically traveling to a place only to travel within that place and travel to a few other countries, just doing whatever I dreamed of. And one of these countries happened to be Cambodia, which I referenced to at the beginning of this podcast. Once you find out how much you are capable of, you're just going to go further and further and further, almost without end. That is why
Mhm.
there's a relationship between Japan and China here. And there is a relationship between China and Australia, which I did not speak to, but it's there. And from Australia to France and then Egypt.
Do you have any specific memories of any specific, like, you know, a night that you were out on the town somewhere, or a country or city that you visited that you can kind of put into words, like what it was like being there?
Yes, sorry that it went off a little bit. Is there a country that you wanted to ask about?
Uh, just of even any of that you just mentioned. So going from like China to Australia, Egypt, any of those places that you just remember specific memories of just being in a city or a town or a place that really stand out to you as just a really cool memory or experience that you had while you were in any of these places?
That's right. Let me just start out with Japan since it's a student exchange. It was actually one of the first nights, maybe the first night, maybe the second night. We were walking outside. We felt safe. We felt peaceful, my friends and I. Now, in the USA, we know about the guns, the violence. Sometimes we feel unsafe at night. In Japan, we were just walking outside. We were saying to the effect that the people around us aren't judging us. We're just walking, feeling free. We were almost like kids. I'm not going to say that we were dancing, we're jumping like kids. I'm saying we were almost like kids in a sense that we felt like we could express ourselves. uh, we could relax. We could look around with huge eyes, our eyes wide open, our mouths wide open, just taking on the scene at night. Just looking at every shop, the Japanese characters, the people who are just walking by, minding their own business, and we could feel safe at any place in the night, knowing that there's not going to be any guns, nor will there be any crimes. People will not try to steal from us, nor take advantage of us. We were free on our own to be mostly ourselves, doing what we wanted to do. That was in Japan. Fast forward to China, when I'm by myself, there is also a similar theme. I'm at night. I was in Beijing just hours ago. I took an airplane to Xi'an, the great ancient capital of China. Not today's capital, the ancient capital of China, the one in which there are terracotta warriors in the terracotta army, as well as a famous mountain and other ancient descriptions of the city in which the first emperor of China united the country and made that his home capital. I'm just outside at night thinking to myself, my goodness, I literally flew myself from the capital to an ancient city on my own. I need nobody. I could just do whatever I want and explore. If I could explore this city, how much further can I go? It was just an aha moment. And again, I'm going around taking everything in almost with that childlike freshness that people have when they are finding things for the first time. And once again, maybe In Australia, the best moments, some of my favorite moments actually happen to be in class when I'm going for my master's degree, learning international relations, and I'm saying, goodness, I made the right choice. I love this major. Let me debate and say whatever I want in class to the teacher, ask any questions about the great power rivalry between the USA and China, and about speculation of how India is going to rise and become a powerhouse in the world. These are three distinct moments that I can recall that were just eye opening for me. Moments in which, when I look back to those moments and then I look forward, I could say, hey, this is where I realize I'm capable of going further, that it's not just in the books, that you can actually walk about or take action to make a certain fantasy real life. And that is mostly my take for a couple of memories in these countries.
Yeah. I mean, those were very, I mean, clearly very impactful on you and your, I guess, no, your knowledge and your, I guess, confidence in being able to kind of do your thing and understanding that this want that you had is a reality now or can be a reality. So that's very awesome. Take us anywhere you'd like to. You don't have to go. We can go chronologically if you'd like to. Sometimes we do that and just go like, hey, I went from here to here to here. But we don't have to do that. We can also do, a case where, because you've been to so many places, and I'm quite positive we're not going to get to touch on every single one of them in one episode. So I would say, if you and I just met and we sat down and we just started talking about like, hey, I've got this great story about going to find a pizzeria in Napoli. And, we don't speak any Italian and the Italian driver doesn't speak any English. And somehow we still made it happen. Like, it doesn't have to be just like that, but I'm just giving you an example. Tell me any of those types of stories anywhere in the world that you've been, of just an adventure that you had or something that you are willing to share with us.
I want to go to Egypt. That
Oh,
one
yeah.
has,
Please take us there. Yes.
I can remember. I was new to Egypt, less than a month in, maybe a week in, within. So I was new to the country, had got myself established in a new home. It was time to explore the city as always.
And
Now,
and how long were you there for overall?
10 months.
Okay. Wow. Great.
Again, I was a student there and my main Arabic. So this story is going to come into two parts. First, I'm going to talk about the gift store, and then I'm going to move it into the pyramids because there is something that I want to display in both. At the gift store, a woman just hands me a pamphlet, leads me into the gift store. I think these people are really nice. There's a man, he's just drawing all this cool art, huge papers, and I mean huge papers that you have to, maybe they're about 3 feet across, and others are maybe just a foot. They're all related to art. They're all beautiful. They're all shining. You can see art of the pyramids or the Sphinx or the pharaohs or the temples in these backgrounds. I am basically looking at which ones I can buy. I don't know the prices yet, but they look good. I want to buy them. This guy, he's acting really nice. He's saying, okay, money doesn't matter. He's just deflecting my question. What matters is the heart. Basically, that money doesn't matter. The heart matters. And then he starts writing my name in Arabic. By the end of it, somehow he managed to stack a whole lot of art onto me, and I wasn't really asking for it. He just says, it's a free gift. Oh, and we also have tea. So, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, I'll just pay for this a certain amount of art, and he's giving me all these gifts for free. But by the end of it, he puts out this outrageous sum of money. I'm like thinking, what? He's trying to scale me. It turns out that's how they work in Egypt. I didn't read about it, but he was really trying to get his money's worth. If I could put it into American currency, it's going to be well over $100, but I can't remember or translate their currency to ours, just that it's way more than I was asking for. So I'm thinking, all right, I have to get myself out of here, but these pictures are good. Let me try to bargain and fight for a lower price. I try to use my status as a student to say, all right, I'm a student, I'm broke, but I'll come to your shop next time, until he basically keeps lowering the price. At the end, I did spend a lot of money, but it was almost half of what I was trying to spend. I walk out of the shop with all these gifts which weren't so free, and I keep that in mind. Some days later, I'm going to the pyramids, and there's a guide Basically, he stops over. He's saying, all right, you're going to the pyramids. I'm going to help you through. I'm a college student. I have a student ID. I can get in for discounts. He helps me get in because at this point, before you get into the pyramids, you should know the place is as crowded as heck and people are fighting, not just fighting. It's more like they are struggling against each other, yelling. There is aggressive behavior. I did not think that was going to happen, but in these countries, aggression moves you forward. In the USA and in Western countries, you rely on order. You wait for your turn. You wait in line. In Egypt, there is no line almost. You don't wait. You have to be aggressive. You have to push. You have to yell. You have to use some sort of forceful, assertive behavior to get in and survive and even thrive. So I'm seeing this, and this guide is helping me out. So he gets me in quite easily. I wasn't sure how long it would take me on my own. We go to the camels. We talk about circling around the pyramids, of going inside. And I cannot forget to ask about the cost, the money. He kind of ignores me. I say it again. Even though I give him my camera to take some pictures, again, he ignores me. And for some reason, I get up on the camel goes up. But wait a minute. I almost forgot to ask about the price a third time. He's still ignoring me. Guess what I do? I am on the camel is standing up in the air. I drop off, or I get off the camel, fall to the ground, not fall on my behind. I'm actually falling on my shoes. And the guy looks all shocked. He's still holding my phone. He's saying, hey, we got to take you a picture. I'm saying, all right, you didn't tell me the cost. What's the costs? How much is it? And basically he's saying something like 3,200 Egyptian pounds. In American currency, it's going to be something like $80 at minimum that he's trying to charge me just to circle around the pyramids. And according to the standard price, it's something like not even $10. So being a foreigner, I realize he's trying to play this game in which he is not telling me anything about the price. He's just trying to hold that in and just take whatever he can from me. It's basically a trap that I realize what's happening later on. We fight here and there. He's saying, okay, the pictures, it's worth about 100 Egyptian pounds each. I'm like, what? You're trying to charge me $7 a picture? No, that's not going to happen. So after the fight, he says, okay. Eventually I'm saying, hey, I don't have that money. He says, oh, there's an ATM. I say, oh, I don't have a card. I can't use an ATM. I also open my wallet and I show him that I have maybe a couple hundred Egyptian pounds. What I do not tell him or show him is that I have more money than that. And I'm just hiding it in my wallet. I use this finger trick to hide or push open one of the doors in my wallet so that he cannot see the money. So he's forced to see whatever I'm wanting him to see. It's a little hard to explain, but basically I'm hiding a certain amount of information from him because I know that he's trying to get as much money as he can from me. And we're basically fighting over, how are you going to pay for this? You should have way more. You're a foreigner. You should have way more to pay for this trip. Eventually, after all this fighting back and forth, I am able to get on the camel. I do give him a couple hundred. He takes me up to the pyramids. We get down and eventually he wants to go off. He wants to leave. He does not want to be with me anymore. I know this is because basically he was expecting to get banged. He was expecting to get rich off of me, but he was disappointed. So I'm just saying, all right, you could go. I'm going to just walk around and explore. He's like, how are you going to get home? I'm just saying, oh, I'm just going to find a way. So he does leave. At that point, I'm off by myself. And then I get to see what's going on with every foreigner. If you are around the pyramids, you need to be careful, not just in Egypt, but especially around the touristy places. Because what I'm looking at is the foreigners come in. They ask, what's the price for this? The people ignore them. They give them their pictures, they give them the services, and then they say, all right, you got to pay up a huge amount of money to get from A to B. And I'm just
so like that was a common theme in Egypt specifically. I actually experienced something similar to that. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it on a podcast before or not, but we were in Rome, and a nice gentleman, when we were at the, oh gosh, the fountain in Rome, and a nice, well, what we thought was just a nice gentleman, we were taking selfies, said, oh, I'll take your photo for you. And then as soon as we allowed him to do that, because we didn't know, he then asked us for money, and we were like, no, thank you. We're not, we're not giving you money. And then he called us a profanity, whatever, Americans, and stormed off very loudly. So yeah, be careful, like you're saying, in any foreign country where it's very populated like that, and the tourists are heavy, because there's always somebody looking to trap you.
Man, I'm glad you gave that example. And yes, it's not just Rome, it's also in Paris, France. But
I'm sure.
in terms of countries, I think it's prevalent in what we call the third world countries. The way that the culture works is different. I'm going in with a Western mindset, similar to the other countries I'm traveling to. If you want somebody to take your picture, they will give you that picture. They'll be a gentleman or kind enough to take that picture, and there will be no strings attached. That is not the mindset you want to go to when you're going to some other countries, maybe in, as I would say, Egypt or a third world country. They operate under different rules. Again, you might expect to wait your turn in line, but in a different country, waiting your turn is a sort of weakness. You are expected to be assertive and push. In another country, you may expect them to have no strings attached with a service. In another country, as I've experienced in Egypt and others in the future, those kind acts are able to be weaponized. They are a sort of shield. It's like you could have a heart, but that heart can turn into an arrow real quickly. This is how they get around in life. This is how they make their money, their pay. This is business to them. This is daily life for them. And foreigners are coming in left and right, getting tricked left and right. And as a note, the economy of Egypt was so bad that these guides resorted to scamming the locals, the local population. My teacher was complaining about this in class. They were that desperate. But on another note, when my Arabic language was able to reach a certain level, I was able to intimidate some of these people. They do not expect you to have any root in their culture. As soon as they realize that you might be a person of knowledge, they are forced to back off somewhat.
That's very interesting.
That is how I was able to get around by myself in a country where they could see clearly I was a foreigner. They may have thought that I was from Africa. There was no way at this point that I was just going to tell them that I was from the USA. I know they're in their eyes. Their eyes would light up like crazy. Last time I told that, I was like, shoot, I made a mistake. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna say that I'm from Sierra Leone, since my dad is from Sierra Leone. And I'm just
There you
gonna say they say, oh, I love Sierra Leone. Yeah, they will say, hey, they'll just pretend to act interested, but they will not come after you in that same aggressive fashion that they would for a Westerner. And I'm not just
That's
talking, I'm also talking for some of my classmates who were from France. One of them was from France. And it's obvious that they are because, well, skin color, appearance, languages, it's easy for them to figure it out. And one more note, if they ever hear what language you speak, that can be used against you. If a guide approaches you and you start talking and they find out what language, they might just figure out where you're from. And the guide that I had, he thought that I was either from the USA or from somewhere in Europe. He was making a guess. And I was trying to pretend that my English was not that good so that I could keep him off his game. I just kind of knew that something was fishy. And also, maybe I shouldn't reveal myself too much. And that actually helped me out. As soon as you talk, they're going to try to figure out where you're from and they're going to use that against you. They're going to use your lack of knowledge against you. Anything that you don't know, anything that you lack, it's going to be business and fair game for them. And that's how they operate.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something great to keep in mind. We don't really talk about that very much. We have definitely touched on things like that before, and I've had guests talk about having really, really, really difficult situations, and one of them may have even been in Egypt. I'm not sure, but yeah, definitely. And I had somebody else who was in France. I think they were in Paris actually, and there were a group of guys that were or maybe not a whole group of guys, but one or two guys that were just sitting on luggage, and they were playing like they were tourists themselves that were stranded, and so they were kind of begging. And they realized after a couple of days and seeing the same person again, maybe in a different locale of the city, doing the same thing, they were like, "Oh, well, they're not really stranded. They're just trying to make money off people." But what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, and again, the floor is yours, truly, and I want you to take us wherever you would like us to go. But if maybe we can flip that, you had some really challenging experiences in Egypt specifically, but is there maybe someplace even more recent, maybe that you've been to, where maybe we can flip it and say some really cool positive experiences that you've had, or anywhere in the world? It doesn't matter to me, but wherever you had some like really cool positive experiences that you can share with us.
Yes. Well, to start, I do actually love Egypt. As crazy
Mhm.
as it can be really bad or really good. So I just want to leave that into the notes. I do love that one, that experience. Now, for recent experiences, I'm going to have to turn to Central Asia. That was last year. That's how recent it was. There were two countries that I was in Central Asia: Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. People might be a little confused. Wait, were you in Pakistan? No, I was not in Pakistan. I was in a country close to Pakistan, close to Afghanistan. It's called Uzbekistan.
Yeah, and I'm very interested in this, and I'll tell you why, AJ. So, where I live in Pittsburgh, there is a very large Uzbeki population that has come to this region of Pittsburgh, and I have interacted with many, many of them. I work as a bank manager, and so a lot of them, will come in and open bank accounts, and so I've had a lot of interactions with Uzbekis, and they're beautiful people. And I'm really interested to know what your experiences have been like.
Magnificent. Well, very well. In Central Asia, again, this is a part where it's not nearly as aggressive as Egypt when it comes to going around. They don't have much exposure to Americans when it comes to just experience in general. So when I arrived there, I may have been one of the very few who are there. Normally,
Why did you? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Why did you choose to go there? Just out of curiosity.
I
It's
was
not. It's
there.
not a huge tourist, destination.
Yes, I was there to learn Russian. Now, in terms of learning Russian, there is Russia, but there's also the war in Ukraine, and I'm not keen to go there and get myself in a little an uncertain situation. So I decided to do the next best thing. Go to a country around the area where I felt I could live it out for a couple of months, learn the Russian language, and explore. I had these two countries in mind: Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. And Uzbekistan won because it had a program that I could find, as well as the location, but it was mainly the Russian program that I visited. And that's how I ended up there to get my 12th and final language.
Excellent, excellent. So, what was
Yes.
your experience like when you were there?
The people are polite. That's how I think about them. They're polite. In fact, there were times which I was traveling in between cities. It may have been Samarkand to Bukhara. I'm trying to figure that out, which it happened more than once. But for some reason, I was trying to pay for a bus. I got the bus paid, but I also had to pay to get my suitcase on the bus. I put my card up to the register and it just wouldn't go. I'm like, son of a gun, my card is not working. What's going on? It's as if there was a glitch in the system. Somebody on that line or somebody next to me just paid it off. Whatever the luggage, whatever I had to pay off, he just paid it off. He spoke to the cash register. I could not understand the Uzbek language, although I had some understanding of Russian. So he spoke to the cash register, paid off my luggage in English, whatever English he knew. He just told me what happened, what bus, and I was able to get on. And around that same time, somebody treated me to a meal because he saw that I was struggling to find stuff to eat. Part of it was the language barrier. I was trying to express myself, but part of it was some of the food was not available and I was hungry. I was like, all right, is there any chicken? She was like, no, we ran out. Is there this food? No, we ran out there too. All right, so what's going on? It was not just a language barrier. It was also a matter of, do they have the food? What time do they have the food? my time is limited. I have to go. So the man bought food for me and we just sat and ate. I was wondering if he had any strings attached. Like, is he expecting any favors from me? But no, he just said, "Welcome to Uzbekistan." We spoke, we went our way. So almost basically no strings attached in terms of helping me with the luggage and in terms of giving me or buying food for me to eat. That was not the first time, but those are moments that stick out in mind when I was struggling to travel. Now, again, English can be all over the place, but there are places in which it is less prevalent, and there are people who can speak English, but there are people in important places who cannot. And at some points, my Russian or my language in that region may not be developed, or even if it is, my understanding of what they're saying may not be developed. It's one thing to speak a language, it's another to understand it.
Hmm.
I might talk, I may not be able to hear what they're saying properly. I might even misinterpret what they're saying. And I was in one of those gray area situations in which all the wrong elements were there, and people helped me through that time in Uzbekistan. So I was really happy about it. My impression of the country and of the people is a positive one. I know there are bad stories out there, but I've had some pretty darn good experiences.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool to hear. I'm actually really happy to hear that because, again, the people that I have interacted with from there who have come here to, start a better life or whatever, have really been some of the kindest people that I've ever met. And so I'm not surprised by that, I guess. So, really, really awesome. And then you said Kazakhstan, right?
That's right. Now, I was there because of a visa run. All right, to be honest, I wanted to go there as well because I'm in Central Asia. I like to travel, but I had a legitimate reason to be there after Uzbekistan. For American tourists or for Americans in general, you are allowed to stay or be in Uzbekistan for a full month, for 30 days. Those were the rules last year before they changed. You can be in that country for up to 30 days and you have to pay $120 to get a visa to be in Uzbekistan. Therefore, I had 30 days to stay there and then I had to leave the country, go to some other country while reapplying for a new visa, which again cost another $120 before I could re enter Uzbekistan in order to continue learning Russian. This rule or this law applied to Americans last year. It did not apply to British citizens and people of other countries. How do I know? Because I was talking to them. They were some of my, I'm not going to say friends, I was acquainted with them when I was living in hostels. And they were shocked. They're like, you got to pay money to get a visa. If you're from Britain, you can get a visa for free for 30 days. If you're an American, it's $120, but it's flipped over in other countries. For example, in Kazakhstan, I could just go there for free, get a visa, and stay for a month. I believe the British have to pay the money, maybe not 120 in US currency. They flip the rules in that kind of manner. So, what was I doing in Kazakhstan? Well, my time in Uzbekistan ran out. I know I had Russian classes in Uzbekistan, but those would have to wait and I would just have to leave the country. So I left after about 26 or 27 days. I did not want to leave at the last minute just in case things go wrong during traveling, which they almost always do in some form or another. I left and towards the end, went to Kazakhstan, a new visa, a new phone number, a new place to live, and I went to the major cities that I wanted to go to. The first one being Almaty, and the other one was the capital city, which, oh man, I can't get it. It just fell out of my head right now, but it also starts with an A. Astana, that is the name of it. And that was my favorite city, Astana. So I was in Almaty first, which is close to the border of Uzbekistan, and I was just traveling and having a little fun or chilling out and walking about, eating the food, doing the typical traveling stuff while I was waiting for my new visa to arrive for Uzbekistan. And since I was deep down wanting to travel in Kazakhstan, I just decided, hey, I may as well go a little further. I went to the capital of the city, and that took about 20 something hours on the bus ride. The country is huge. It may not look that way on the map, but it is huge, humongous. It takes 10, 20 hours just to go from one place to another, and it's mostly desert. And I was in the capital city for about 8 more days before my visa for Uzbekistan was good. Once my visa was good, I took a bus from the capital, which was about 26 hours from the capital to the biggest city, south. And then from there, I went into Uzbekistan on my new visa, going past the border with all those problems that happen and all the touristy stuff and the money haggling that happens. Then I decided to not just stay in the capital, which is Tashkent, but to go to the other cool cities. Therefore, I explored Uzbekistan fully with the other 2 or 3 cities before going back to the capital, which is Tashkent, to finish my Russian classes. That is basically the gist of what happened while I was in Central Asia.
Let me ask you this question, because for those of us who, and most of us, I don't think really do, like I said, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan aren't necessarily high on a priority list to go visit. What are the reasons why we should maybe change our mind? And even you mentioned that the capital city of Kazakhstan was beautiful to you. Like, what reasons are there for that? Why would it be a good idea to spend 6, 7, 8 days there or anywhere in those two countries?
Okay, you should spend it for those who don't. I'm going to say it this way, it's a hidden gem and it is cheap. So I'm going to approach this from a financial perspective. If they're looking for a cheap place to travel, which is cheap and beautiful with people who are kind, you should go to these 2 countries. If you are scared of people being mean, well, you don't have to worry about that problem in Central Asia. If you are worried about expenses, you don't have to worry about that. And a matter of fact, you do not have to worry about the visa problem that I had, because apparently they changed the rules. You don't have to pay so much money to get a visa, and I think it is free now. After I left, they changed the visa rules for Uzbekistan. So therefore, it's going to be easier for people to go into the countries. You should go to these countries if you love history, because the designs are scattered about the city. Uzbekistan is the location of the Silk Road from China to the Middle East. And that's where they have these souvenirs and art. They have these most often in the big cities. So there's Tashkent, which I named, but there's Bukhara and Samarkand. You can also go if you like an environment which is peaceful. I know some countries over there tend to be chaotic. This is not one of them. Okay, maybe in the central part of the city. But in general, the people tend to be on the friendly side. I would describe them as hospitable. I would not describe them as hateful, angry, mean, or spiteful. So you'll feel good around the people, and that will make the experience greater. The food is also diverse. They might say, oh, Osh, I know the food has various names, but the way they mix in the sauces and the flavors into the rice, the eggs, and their meat makes for a tasty meal. If you're a fan of food, it might be worth it going to these countries. And again, if you are a fan of a high-tech city, a city in which AI is dominant, and a place in which there is a minister, a minister of artificial intelligence, the one and only in the world, then Kazakhstan might be your place. And I am talking specifically about its capital city, Astana. As long as you can withstand the cold environment, then you can explore what new, beautiful architectural designs they have. So to summarize it, I know I gave several reasons. From a financial perspective, the countries are cheap. They are affordable. And the visa rules changed for Americans when it comes to Uzbekistan. With Kazakhstan, you could just go in, get a visa on entry or something and just explore the city. From an artistic perspective, they have these almost flower-like, curvy, I don't know how to describe it pretty well. You just might have to see it for yourself. The art, the color, the sapphire blues, they are wonderful to look at. When you walk through the cities, your eyes have something good to see, and that makes for a pleasant experience. The people themselves, from this perspective, they are hospitable. Sorry, they are welcoming. They are kind. And if you get into any sort of trouble, there's a good chance that they will help you through. And many of them can speak English. The degrees to which fluence varies. Some can talk really well. You can hold entire conversations with the people who work in hotels or hostels. And some people in the streets might know simple sentences. Therefore, if you need to get directions, you might ask them, or you might just read some directions. Hey, there's a shop here to the east, a shop in this city, because they use English, they use Russian, and they use the Uzbek language, all three of these back to back, or the Kazakh language. They use all of these back to back in their programs. I can't really say a bad thing about these countries at this point because what is good outweighs what is bad. There will be bad apples in every country. You will need to have a certain amount of confidence or courage when it comes to traveling. And I know the world can seem unstable with different international crap or chaos that is happening.
Mm-hmm.
But to hidden gems, I really think these countries are hidden gems. They match the descriptions. They're
I'm
living.
so happy that we talked about these because, again, these are not countries that we talk about. It's not countries that are on most people's radars. And so I think that that's awesome. Let me ask you a question about your travel style when you're in a place. And it sounds like it's almost every country, at least that we've spoken about so far, is a place where you're learning the language, and maybe that's part of the reason why you're there, whether it's intentional or not. It sounds like that's part of it. But one of the questions I have for you is, it sounds like you're a big walker, which I think is you and I are kindred spirits in that. When I'm in a foreign place, that's the best way to see and really immerse yourself and not miss something that could be really impactful or beautiful. But how much are you going out of your way to necessarily talk to other people, whether it's in an English speaking country or not? How much are you, and you're a solo traveler typically, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So how often are you trying to purposefully interact with whether they're locals or other travelers when you're in a place?
I am fairly open to talking to people. If I am, for example, in a hostel, I'm going to want to talk to somebody, see what's up. And chances are they're going to be the same way as well. So that makes it quite easy. So right off the bat, when it comes to foreigners, when it comes to the locals, it's also the same story. Actually, it varies with the locals as well. When I am in the mood to talk, or when I am going to a destination, whether it's a museum or even a store, or just walking about trying to explore a new place, if there's somebody who seems like they're in the mood to talk, then we just tend to get together and just talk about whatever. We might talk about their life over there. They might talk about what's happening in my country. Who am I? We tend to talk easily. So I would say I'm fairly open. I'm available to talk to anybody when the time comes. When I am in a certain mood, though, when I am in travel mode,
Mhm.
that is when I'm more closed off in talking. I may have to explain that a little bit more. Travel mode means I want to get to point A to point B as quickly as possible, a destination, maybe to the bus. Maybe I want to get their version of Uber. Maybe I want to go to a touristy destination. When I have some place that I want to go and I want to get there quickly, that is when I am closed off from conversation. And I do have an extra reason to be closed off at this point. It's because people are naturally curious. The locals of a country are naturally curious when they see a foreigner in their country. They may give one look, two looks, three looks, stares or glances or curious side eyes to me when I am traveling because they have not seen a person of my type before. I'm basically a Black American going to one country or another. It's quite possible that I'm going to get looked up left and right. And when people are curious, they will want to stop by and talk about me or hear about me. But I want to get to a destination quickly. Therefore, I want to cut the conversation quick so that I would be on my way to get somewhere, to get something on time, If I am limited, sorry, if I'm on some sort of constraints, that's when I am closed off.
That
I
makes
might
total sense.
I be closed off if I'm in a bad mood. Something happened. Things did not go my way. I spent a whole crap ton of money for what I want. And now I'm not trying to think about how am I going to pay for classes, pay off student loans, afford food for today. The stock market went wrong or some other factor. And I am in my head trying to calculate and come up with a plan to get myself through. If
Yeah.
I'm not in the mood, if I'm not too stressed out, if I have no specific agenda or I'm not rushed for time or prep, then I tend to look around me to other people, and I tend to want to have a conversation.
Can you think of any, just this is again, this is my own curiosity. Can you think of any times, again, anywhere in the world that you've been where you did have that moment where you maybe you sat down and just happened to encounter someone from another country, whatever, and you struck up a conversation with them, or they struck up a conversation with you, and you vividly remember that conversation because it was impactful in some way, and maybe or maybe not, you actually still connect with that person on social media or something like that, where maybe you still keep in touch with anyone that you've met in your travels?
Oh boy, India. I'm just going to say India for this matter. 3 years ago, in terms of conversation and in terms of what mood I was not in a good mood that night for some reason or another. I can't remember all the factors of what happened. But for background, I was not in New Delhi. I was in a state called Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand was next to the Himalayan mountains. Oh, sorry, I got to backtrack that. It was with the Himalayan mountains. I lived in mountains in which I could see the Himalayas at a distance. My objective was to learn Hindi. I was not learning Hindi that night. I was sitting around trying to do yoga. I was trying to basically lighten myself up. Maybe I had a problem that day and I can't remember again what it was. I may have been a little sick from the pollution. I may have spent too much money and I was trying to recalibrate or calculate how I'm going to get past the next week, whatever it was. I was at night on my own outside of my hostel, away from the crowd, with my yoga mat, trying to do pigeon poses and stretch. Somebody comes up. He's smoking, or maybe he was having a party. I did not want to talk. For some reason, one or both of us said something about spirituality and religion, and he wanted to join me with yoga. Those are what I remember. I don't know how it happened exactly, or I can't remember fully. But with that word of spirituality, he said, I study all religions, but I don't follow any to that effect. Oh, cool. Well, guess what? I also have a spiritual side. I know about the religions. And we're basically about to have a debate about free will versus predestination. At that point, I'm just about to engage in a conversation, and some person who is an astrologist comes in, a friend of that person who was wanted to join me with in yoga. So now it's basically five of us, I think, five, maybe more of us gathered that night. Just
And, and,
about,
and, are, and are these locals?
yeah, that's right. They are all local. I'm going to
Okay.
say they're all Indian, but
Okay.
they all come from a different city.
Okay.
From it, and to this day, I'm in contact with two of them from that night. So I know I could go on and on and on. Long story short, if I could summarize this, I was in a bad mood, trying to calculate how am I going to get past a day. Somebody comes in, wants to do yoga with me. I'm not in the mood to talk. Now I'm starting to remember. He asked me where I was from. I did not want to say anything because too many people were asking me the same questions, and the same question every day with the same response was getting on my nerves. Where are you from? I'm from the USA. What state? Ohio. Oh, I have a friend from Ohio. I have a friend from California. If I said I grew up in California, it felt like it was the same thing for me. I would prefer to have a different conversation. And this night, I had a good debate on predestination versus free will. I argued in favor of free will. They argued in favor of predestination, and an astrologist was doing his readings. It was madness that night. But to this day, I'm friends with him. He's an actor. He travels to the UK to do his acting stunts, and he lives his life pretty well. I think he's making his way in the world. And the astrologer, he has his financial job by day, and he seems to travel here and there. But that is a night that I remembered.
That's very cool. And I think one of the coolest things about travel, if you let yourself be open to having those kinds of conversations, even though you weren't to begin with, but you still let it happen, something triggered in you that was enough to spark your interest in actually having that conversation. I think that kind of stuff is awesome. And I love the fact that you're still in touch with a couple of those people and you found it valuable enough, valuable enough to, swap socials and whatever and be in touch. And who knows? Like that kind of stuff is cool because you never know when you're going to be in a place and someone that you had this brief connection with could be there as well. Or maybe you find a time that all of a sudden you're near each other and you realize that and you reconnect and stuff. I love things like that. I do want to get to, again, you mentioned this before we even hit record on this. You said, I'll bet you an hour is going to go by very fast. And I just looked at the clock and I realized we're usually getting to the 5 final questions now. But I'm really enjoying this conversation. And before we get there, again, we're not going to get to most of the places in the world that you've been. We might have to do this again down the road, which is not a bad thing. But I do have one final question for you before we get to our final 5 questions. I'm really interested to know of any of the places that you've been in the world. Can you tell me one or two of just like the funniest, craziest things that have happened to you in your travels?
Okay. The funniest, craziest things. I'm trying to shuffle in place by place and see because what might be to me and my group when I was traveling, one event might be funny, but then how about a different event? So some of the most dramatic things that happened in my travels, already said so, but I'm trying to figure out what would qualify as funny. So I'm going to go ahead and just going to go to Brazil since that is sticking up in my head. In Brazil, I was going to learn Portuguese. This was about a week or two in my month of Brazil, so halfway there. We already saw Christ the Redeemer. We already saw a bunch of hills in Rio de Janeiro because that's where we lived or that's where we stayed. We're seeing stuff left and right. Now, just take this into account. I saw a high tech museum, and at this point, I was looking into architecture. I like architecture. There is a museum made by a world class architect. This museum looks like a donut or some sort of ovular shape. I want to take my classmates there. It is in the city of Niterói. That means I have to take an Uber from Rio de Janeiro to the nearby city of Niterói to see what appears to be this high-tech museum made by a world-class architect. I am so in. Not only am I in, I want to express what's going to be my joy and satisfaction, just the awesomeness with my classmates. I persuade them all to come along with me and see what kind of high-tech stuff, technology might be in this museum. I take them on an Uber ride. We're riding across the bridge. We're looking at all these birds flying with us. We're like, oh, all right, cool. The ocean or some body of water is beneath us. The excitement is real. We're going to see what the heck is going on in the city of Niterói. We get out of the Uber. Just so happens there is some sort of big celebration of people dancing. Not a problem. We'll make our way into this museum eventually. So there are people dancing. There is some sort of special event going on, but it's not too important. The important part is getting inside this museum to see what special things they have. We get in for free because of the special event. Cool. We get into the first opening room where there's directions. Like any other place, there has to be directions, stuff to do, whatever. We go into the circular room to explore this donut-like place, see what science fiction is going on. So we see it, and we see basically a lot of empty space. One of my classmates is like, what the hell is this? What's going on? What, what do you take us to, AJ? We're supposed to be looking at some cool stuff. I'm like, I don't know what to say. We're supposed to be looking at something in this museum. The only things that we're seeing is some old science fiction art that is plastered on the walls, maybe some 1950s stuff. It's looking old. We see the windows in which we could look at people dancing outside having themselves some fun. And then we're just looking at basically an empty hallway. And then the other hallways and other sections of the museum are sealed off closed. So, what did I take them to? Just a giant space of emptiness.
No.
What? It's supposed to be high tech, man. Basically, the only high tech stuff that we saw, if it's even that, is actually down somewhere in the middle of the museum, in which there's a room of projection, not too much unlike that of a movie theater, where they're playing movies and scenes and people's. And if you have your smartphone with you, you can log in and see the world or see this 3D holographic image in your phone and manipulate it. I don't know exactly what it was, but that was as high tech as we could find over there. Basically, I took them to a museum. Basically, I told my mates, I have a surprise for you. This architect did something amazing. It looks cool on the outside. How much cooler can it look on the inside? I take them to the place, and we're just going nuts, crazy that the place has basically either old stuff or almost nothing. And we're basically joking about it. I'm saying one or two of us were saying, oh, the birds that we saw and the ocean view that we saw while taking an Uber, that was more entertaining than the people outside dancing. That was something. That was more entertaining than this. What the hell is this inside the museum? We ain't finding.
So you thought you were going to like this really cool frosted with sprinkles donut, and ended up being a plain bagel.
I would describe it, except for what was found at the bottom or something. It was an empty museum of I don't know what, combined with filled up rooms. I felt like I misled the entire team onto a museum.
Bummer. I
And
wish that you would tell me that you went out, well, you decided to go outside and you just started dancing with everybody, because that would be like the perfect ending. But I don't think that happened.
no, I was just looking at them dance. I wasn't dancing myself. I can dance, but I was. I also forgot to say before we even went up to the museum, we decided to eat at a restaurant. And so we're all seated together, the five of us. The person goes up, the waiter. He comes up to me first because I'm sort of the leader at this point. He asks me, what do I want? I want a drink, this and that. I think I say it in Portuguese because it's good enough. He goes away. He doesn't take the next person's order. He goes away. He gives me my drink. Then he asks for the next person. And then after he gets his order, he sort of walks away. We're all sort of creeped out or confused. It's like, he's looking, is something wrong with him? He's doing it one at a time. Eventually, we get him to get all of our orders at once. But that was basically a little strange moment in which we're thinking, what's going on? We've never experienced this before in any kind of restaurant. And then we go up looking at what should be some technological market pervading, exciting surprise that is going to amaze us. Amaze us to the brim because of a brilliant world class architect who made something so unique on the outside, sorry, so rare on the outside, maybe unique. How much better can it be on the inside? And nothing. Nothing at all. Practically nothing. That was our.
What a bummer.
I still say it was worth it. I wouldn't trade that moment for any other thing because
I'm sure the memories are irreplaceable.
yeah, there's nothing like having your expectations going through the roof only to start laughing. We weren't bored or bored out of our minds. We were just basically laughing the whole time, like, AJ, what did you do? Well, and I'm looking at myself like, yeah, what did I do? Well, what did the architect do? Don't ask me, ask him. But we're just going off laughing. We got ourselves some pictures, and basically, the moment is sealed in our memories.
I was going to say, and you probably never lived that down with any of them.
Nobody was angry in the end. We're just thinking about how a good moment it is, and at least One of our classmates did get a good moment. He's like, "Yeah, I know there was nothing up there, but down here, I got something from it." So he got something from it. A person got something from the restaurant moment before this because this was, in his words, a unique experience he never experienced. My roommate, who is also a classmate, and we got a kick out of having super high expectations followed by nothing. And it was free to enter. So I can't be mad about that. I was just laughing. He was laughing.
Yeah.
Everybody got something from that experience.
Thank goodness it was free. That's probably the best part of it. This has been wonderful, AJ. I've really enjoyed spending this time with you. I do have a final 5 questions I'd like to run through with you. And as I tell every guest, you have as much time as you'd like to expand on these answers. I'm in no rush, just in the interest of time for our listeners. It probably makes sense to get into these. So if you're ready, let's jump into these final 5. Are you good?
Yep, I'm keen. I'm game. We're ready.
Awesome, awesome. So you've definitely mentioned food, not necessarily a little bit specifically with some of the things that you've had, but and the way that they did things with the rice and the flavors and whatever sauces and stuff in one place or another. But I it sounds like you do enjoy different foods, and so I'm excited about question number one. And pay attention to the phrasing because I do phrase the question very specifically because sometimes it's not about the actual meal. Question number
Mhm.
one is: of all the places in the world that you've ever been, what has been one or two of the most memorable meal experiences you've ever had? And you can't use that one that you just told.
Okay. China is actually, I don't think I referred to China, but that one has some of the most diversified foods that I have ever seen. It's a huge country. The food that I would tend to eat was called sun tai. That's how they say it. But in terms of food, you could go in one restaurant, get some fish or seafood. Go in a different restaurant, get some lamb. Go in a different restaurant, get some duck and other vegetables. Go in another restaurant, get some other type of meat. And this is where we get crazy. In Beijing, there is a market in which you can eat bugs, insects, or animal parts. I happened to go into that market. I ate 2 or 3 scorpions. And I have to admit that they were delightful and tasty. I also ate a snake. This was in that kind of market. So, in this market, they were taking these insects, they boiled them alive, painful to watch. And then I think they basically died or something. But whatever the case is, they give it to you on a stick and you just eat it. You have at it. And when I ate those scorpions, the other foreigners around me were looking with their mouths down wide and their eyes big with fear as I bit my teeth into that scorpion and was crunching it up like a loud sound. There were these loud crunch sounds with every bite. To me, it was tasty. They put some spice on that thing. I did not have to worry about getting stung by that tail. I don't know what they did, but I didn't have to worry about getting hurt. It was good, and I had quite an audience around me to look in fear, terror, amazement, or basically whatever expressions they had. That was one of my favorite moments of eating. As for the snake, same story. It was tasty, but it had this rubbery taste. It was not crunchy like the scorpion. It was rubbery. I had to really get in it. I had to pull it apart like it was some sort of gummy, tacky thing. And that again was good, delightful, while I had quite an audience wondering just how in the world was I able to do it. Beats me, but it is good to try here and there. If I were to visit China, I would go into that market and I'd find something else to eat. And I hope that answers the question.
That's awesome. It does absolutely, and that's I consider myself pretty adventurous with food as well. So I I've never done scorpion. I've never done snake. I have done guinea pig and I have done alpaca, which are two things that we don't eat in the States. But if I was in a place where they did that, I think I would actually try it. I've done ants before. I don't think I've done other bugs, But again, it's only mostly because it just hasn't been presented to me in a way that is appealing in any way. So I'm just going to pluck a bug from the window and just nibble on it. So I think those are good answers.
Also, be aware of the cash. They didn't take card, they took cash. That is why I was limited. I chose to eat those two, but if I had more cash on me at the time,
But you
I
don't.
probably would have gotten further. Yeah, they don't
You mean
take
I don't?
card.
But it's good that you. It's good. It kind of worked out that way, right? It's worked out great because you found out you actually sort of enjoyed them, and you may not have tried them. So that's great.
Yeah. Go back in the future and try some ants or try some bugs or try some liver or whatever I could get my hands on.
There you
I'd like
go.
to do that.
Okay. So question number 2 is actually one of my favorite questions. I say it every episode, and people are probably sick of it. And I'm sorry, or maybe I'm not. Not everyone has an answer for this question, and that's fair if you don't. I get it. But question number 2 is: of all the places in the world that you've ever been, even if I said to you, AJ, here's a free trip, you don't even have to pay for it. Go and enjoy yourself. You would say, no, thank you. I don't want to go back.
Ooh, you're talking about a country that I would just despise. No
Well,
one to
not
go back.
not not necessarily. So you can think of it any way you'd like. It could just be, I've been there, I'm good. I don't need to go back. Again, it's a free trip though. So or it could just be, I didn't have a good experience and I don't want to go back there. However that is for you.
Dang. That actually is hard for me to answer precisely because for one reason or another, I managed to flip over even a bad experience and make it a string. That is what is causing some trouble. I have friends who would be able to answer the question and pinpoint a country that, even if it were free, they would not want to get into it. But from my point of view, I can go into a country, come out in better shape than when I entered. I could thrive in the country. That is why I'm like, all right, which country would I not want to go to, even if it's free? And I don't really have an answer at this point.
Well, and
Perhaps I
that's
need.
Well, and I was just going to say, I don't mean to step on you, but that's fair. And I have absolutely had people say, first of all, maybe they haven't had a bad experience somewhere, so it's not really, or a terrible experience somewhere, so it's not a fair question. But I've also had a lot of people say, listen, even if I didn't have a good experience there, places change, people change. Maybe I don't go to the same city. Maybe I go to a different area and just experience a different part of that country or that place. So it's very fair to not have an answer, and I don't mind that at all.
Got it. But there is a country that I did not go to that I would not want to go to. I could answer it from that perspective.
Yeah, go for it. I've never had that, so go for it.
North Korea. I had classmates or fellow coworkers who went to North Korea from China. This is when I was in China and they decided they were going to fly over to not South Korea, North Korea. They were creeped out. You go there, you need a guide. The guide will lead you to certain places. You are under surveillance. You go to your room is probably tapped for surveillance. There are certain things which should not leave your mouth in terms of words. They will report you to another group and report what you're doing. Basically, in a nutshell, my friends were getting freaked out, creeped out, and one of them got themselves into some financial trouble for one reason or another and needed to rely on their friends to bail them out of a situation. Whatever the case is, it didn't look good. It didn't sound good. And if I were to go there as a solo traveler, I probably would want to turn back and go to any other country, not to North Korea. I've been to South Korea. I loved it. I would not want to cross that border and go to the north. Not as an American, not as a solo traveler, not without help, not even if it were free. I would just not want to have anything to do with it.
And probably not a place where if you did go, even if you did go and you went with a guide and you just wanted to kind of get in there for a couple days and get out, probably not a place where you're just taking photos as a tourist like you would in many other places, because probably one of those things where you're gonna get something confiscated.
Yeah, you
Things like that.
not you're not even supposed to take photos or
Yeah,
pictures.
yeah. So,
If you either you are able to under extremely strict circumstances or you may as well forget it because they are on you. Their eyes are plastered onto you like glue. They are not going to leave you alone.
That is a very fair answer. I think I've only talked to, I think I maybe have talked to one person who's been to North Korea. I'm trying to remember. It's a lot of episodes. But I feel like there was one person that said they've been there. But yeah, no, I get that. And so, well, let's take question three. Let's make it better and lighter. So let's flip question two into question three and say, okay, of all the places in the world that you've been so far, but I'm going to throw a caveat. If for some reason you knew that you only had one or two trips left in your lifetime, or one or two trips left that you were able to take, what are the one or two places that you've been that you absolutely have to go back to?
Hands down, Egypt. There is no place in the world like Egypt. That tops my list straight on. Even when I described what appears to be a horror story, when you learn to survive and thrive in it, then it flips over and it becomes extremely good. And I'm not just talking about the pyramids, which are magic in themselves, nor the temples, but the quick paced life of that country. Something about it suits my style. It's ancient and it's lively and it's boisterous. The people are great at conversing. The Arabic is quite a musical circular language. The food, pretty good. And I'm somebody who likes to go to the big cities. When I travel, I want to be in the capital. If it's not the capital, it better be a big city. People might hate it because of the stress, but to me, that's exactly where I want to be because that's where all of the action takes place and that's where most of the events takes place. It makes things more lively for me to travel. If I'm in a city, it's not the capital, it's small and there's nothing to do, I might get bored. Egypt tops my list of countries. For if I had to go somewhere again, I would recommend that one.
That's excellent. Let me ask you another question too. And again, I'm sorry to step on you. How much time, if I'm a working American who has not yet been able to flip my thought process to say that travel is the end goal, the work is just the way to travel. So I'm still working a full-time 9 to 5 job, and the job comes first. But I do want to experience Egypt. How many weeks of vacation do I, at very, very, very minimum, in your estimation, do I have to take in order to really, really get a taste? Maybe not fully experience it, but what's the minimum amount of time that I have to spend in Egypt to at least really understand it?
I think 1 week. If you go in for a couple of days, maybe 2 or 3 days, you're going to be confused as to the fast paced life, craziness, chaotic bullcrap that's going on. It's going to seem crazy to you. And people are not as punctual as you would expect. People are aggressive. People don't line up properly. They're pushing. You are going to be confused within a matter of days. If you stay there for maybe 5 days, you're going to sort of get the gist. This is a way of life. The way they drive, to the way people walk, to the way people move, to the way people argue. Maybe they're not necessarily angry people. This is just a country that runs on passion, enthusiasm, fire, excitement. By week's end, you should understand Egypt to some degree. You'll understand how people operate. They're not from the West. They're not of the Western world. They operate with high energy, passion, and fire. They are really nice. They can be nice, but their kindness is expressed in this boisterous, energetic way versus a gentle, laid back way. So I'd say give it a week. You might even get scammed out of your money, but then, even then, you'll figure out how it works. You'll figure out how they operate, what is business to them. What seems crazy to you might be business to them. What you consider nonsense might be just their way of life. Within a week, you should have that set. Two,
But
3 days, 3 days, you'll be freaking out. A week, I just recommend it.
But so you get to that point in a week, but then you haven't really been able to enjoy it necessarily. So is it maybe 10 to 12, maybe even 14 days, just so that you can, once you kind of settle into understanding what the culture is like and why it is the way it is, then you kind of should have some extra time to be able to just enjoy that part of it. Am I right?
I think so too, because that's the way it worked for me. And I also have to add in my classmates, at least one of them, and for certain of the women, they had a different experience from me as well. It's also going to vary based on gender, based on race, based on your personality. If you are a woman, you might experience harassment as classmates did. That might affect your journey. If you are maybe white, they might see you as somebody to take money from. But if you have a personality in which you know how people work, you know how they operate, you know what is business for them, and you're able to assert yourself, even intimidate people to get by, then you might actually end up enjoying it. You might actually be able to roll through. If you don't have that confidence, maybe even 2 weeks ain't gonna cut it for you.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense as well. No, that's a great
Yeah.
answer, and I love that you expanded on that a little bit. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So, moving on to question number 4, second to the last. The same caveat, though. So, you only have 1 or 2 trips left in your lifetime for some reason. I'm not trying to be morbid and say, like, hey, I'm near death or anything like that. Just for whatever reason, 1 or 2 trips left in your lifetime. Of all the places in the world that you have never been, AJ, if you could only pick 1 or 2 places left in the world that you have to get to, what are those 1 or 2?
I'm thinking technically of my next two countries. Maybe I should throw them into the answer. And that would be Mexico and Nigeria. Again, Mexico and Nigeria. Mexico, in parts, it's not just close to us, but there's something that I want to see over there. Those pyramid structures, those ancient stuff. I've been wanting to see that stuff for a long time. And then basically explore
Like the Incan or whatever.
all of,
Yeah.
yeah, all of that. I know Mexico is
Mayan. Incan Mayan. Wait, which I'm confusing myself.
both.
Mayan.
Yes, it has both though. I'm
Okay.
gonna say all Olmecs, if I'm saying it correctly. And then I think the Mayans came second, and then the Incans, and there's the hills. I might be messing up on a name, but I believe there's like three successive groups. I'd like to see all of that. The pyramids, all of that. Mexico City, that too. Wherever something exciting can be found, I can see whatever is there because it's a country that it's next to us, so it's easy to get to, but it's also fairly big. I like big countries,
Mm-hmm.
and I have at it. The language is something that I know, so it should be fairly easy for me to just get in, explore what I want to explore, and get out to the next country, which would be Nigeria. And I would like to see that because, again, big country. If a country is big, chances are that's where all the excitement is. They tend to have a lot of things when it's a big country, from the natural hills and plains to the museums to the educational centers in Nigeria. I'd be into all of that. If there's anything that I'm not aware of, I would want to know about it. They also have people in Nollywood, which is a major movie center. They have business people. It is basically a movie hub and a business hub within Africa. It is called the Elephant of Africa for a reason. Aliko Dangote and those other powerhouses, they have their home base in Nigeria as well. I'd want to see the economic situation, political situation, the form of media, the technology, the form of medicine, the culture, the languages. I would have at it in the country in Nigeria. So if I had a choice, Mexico and Nigeria would both be on my list as far as I'm concerned. Because when it comes to other countries, I have seen so many of the big countries: China, India, Egypt, you name it, Germany, France. I've already seen many of these big countries, but I have not seen all of the big countries that exist. Therefore, I'm just going to lay my case and name those two of Mexico and Nigeria.
Excellent answers. I don't know that we've ever had either of those as our answers for that question. And this, again, we're coming up. I believe this will be episode 69. So that's pretty incredible to have those as the answers and have them be fresh and new. So kudos to you. And let's wrap with question number 5. And then I have one final thing for you. So question number 5 is very easy. And I don't know if you said that. I thought maybe I heard you say these are already kind of on your list. But the question number 5 very simply is, you know the answer because you know what's on your docket. Do you have anything planned in the next few months, the rest of this year into next year? Where are you absolutely going? Where you already have planned?
Oh, yeah. I'll start by saying I accomplished the one country that I wanted to travel to this year, which was the Bahamas. It was short, brief. It was a family vacation trip. The reason being is because I used a lot of the money that I earned in order to get a LASIK eye surgery. So I do not need glasses. I got that accomplished. Therefore, when it comes to traveling, it had to be short. I was short on funds. With that being said, I'm happy with where I am for the rest of this year. And instead, I'll just look to the year ahead when it comes to traveling anywhere. And the two countries that I said for for the previous question would end up being where I would want to go to in the future, which is Mexico and Nigeria. And the same stuff, where I'm just traveling, exploring, eating the foods, learning about the political, economic situation, the cultural situation, looking at the people, etc., etc.
So not necessarily set in stone and officially planned, but that is your plan for 2027.
Yeah, I would say it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, that description.
that's excellent. AJ, this has been so much fun. You're a wealth of knowledge. I love the way that you travel so very intentionally. You know what travel means to you, and you just very firmly live by that. And you also like to explore and learn new things. And I love every bit of what you're doing. And I definitely, without question, want to have you back on the show again. Maybe this time next year when you've gotten some more travels under your belt. Plus, again, there's a lot of places we never even touched on. But before I hit stop on the episode, I want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything you would like to say to the listeners? Anything that you would like to add before we close things out?
Yes, I want to expand on the intentional traveling. As people, in my experience, they do have their dream countries and destinations to travel to. One of the most common obstacles hear about is I'm too scared. There is a need for courage, basically. I'm too scared, or I don't know how to even go about it. In my opinion, there is courage. It does take courage to travel. And you may courage, see it as a progressive thing, not as something you either have or you either don't. See it in the same way as investing in yourself or growing strong at the gym or becoming smarter. You have a certain amount of courage. Well, you can expand upon it. You can push yourself little by little. If you're too scared to go to do this country, if it's too much for you, maybe take a smaller country that you're confident in traveling to so that next time after that country, you will have more confidence, more courage within yourself to travel. Courage is a progressive thing. It is not something you either have or you either don't have. Again, if I did not go to Japan, I would not have the courage to go to China. It's because I went to Japan, I felt confident enough to travel by myself for a year. Even though I was terrified, I still had it in me to travel by myself for a whole year in China after that. So progression is there. And second, when it comes to traveling, you have to put it on your top one, maybe second priority. People keep talking about it to me as if it's more like a wishful thought than an actual reality. To me, this is reality. When I want to go somewhere, you can bet that it's going to be a number one on my list, on my New Year's resolution. 2027 comes. All right, we got one or two countries to go to. All right, I'm going to go to two countries. It's just going to be on the top of my list. You have to make it a priority, not wishful thinking. If you say, maybe I'll go there, oh, maybe's not going to cut it. Traveling is way more complex than maybe. It's way more complex than wishful thinking. It is an actual investment. You're throwing your time and your money and your own sense of confidence to go out of the country, and you're probably going against social expectation, whether it's your friends and your job. There are elements that work against you when it comes to traveling, including your own mind. That is why it has to be top of your list. If it's not on the top, it better be second or third. You have to be rock solid with your willpower, with your determination to travel. Because once it's at the top, you're going to treat it like your other priorities when they were at the top. If you wanted to get a new car, you would be hustling and working to get the money. You would be doing your research. You'd be looking at deals and shops to get a new car because it'd be at the top of your list. When it comes to traveling, it needs to be at the top of your list. It needs the same amount of attention. You better throw your time, your money, your sense of courage and confidence, your own mindset into it. Because if you're not in it, you're just not going to travel. You're not getting anywhere out of the world. It'd be too scary, too costly. Your friends say it's dangerous, like anything, too risky, too this, too that, too crazy, whatever. Make it your priority.
Yeah, and you'll just keep kicking the can down the road and stop kicking the can down the road. Pick up the can and actually do something about it. I love it, man. I love it so much. My listeners don't know this, but this is AJ's first podcast that he's done. Excellent job, my friend. I would never have known that this was your first one, and I think it was really great. And I'm honored to have had you as your first podcast as a guest. So just appreciate you and taking the time with us.
Thank you. And yes, it went really well. First podcast. Yeah. I can only imagine things are going to get better.
Yeah, man.
But have it. You can say, hey, you did it. First podcast for me.
Thank you so much, my friend. We will definitely be in touch. And again, good luck in everything that you have going on. I cannot wait to read the book when it comes out. Just make sure you let me know, remind me. I'll be following you on socials as well. I think I actually did already, but I'll be keeping up on things with you, and just have a fantastic night there in Columbus, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
For sure. I will see you sometime, Bill.
And there's another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast in the books. Thank you so much for listening today. It was another great guest with some great stories, as always. And I hope that you will support all of the guests by checking out the show notes and going to their web pages, seeing any socials and projects that they may have going on. And please, again, I'll ask as always to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really does help to allow the podcast to grow and reach more people, and I appreciate you for doing that. Also, if you haven't done so, check out the website, whydpodcast.com, where you can find blog posts. If you'd like to be a guest, please register to be a guest on the site, and check out the merch page. There's some really cool stuff if you're interested in representing the pod, along with some other cool travel items and apparel that I'm working on every day as well. Join me again next week for another great guest with more incredible stories. New episodes drop every Sunday just after midnight Eastern Time. Until then, thank you for being here, and have a great day.